All right, so thank you for coming today. This week we're going to be having an activity. So we're going to show you kind of what the gradebook looks like from both the student side and the instructor side, kind of how to set it up, what to do with it, some of the changes that have been happening with posting grades and hiding grades. So in order to do that, I'm going to have you all turn in an assignment. And for you to turn in an assignment, we need to have you go onto the Active Teaching Lab Fall 2019 course. If you don't have a computer, we have 5 up there, or 4 now, 4 up front. And if you haven't ever been onto the Active Teaching Lab Fall 2019 course, fear not. I have the URL right here. So if you're online, you can even just pause this and just get that URL and type that in. So if you haven't been to the to the Active Teaching Lab Fall 2019 course, you just want to go to this URL right here. That's on this sheet right here under the Easy in-lab activity, and then has the URL underlined right there. You just follow that URL, click Enroll in Course, and you go right into that course as a student. And then when we get to the point where we're going to do some of the activities, you can follow along with us. Put that back. All right, also a couple other announcements. If you happen to know any graduate students who are still looking for some employment or looking for a few hours of work, CETL is now hiring new graduate workers. So we're hiring new teaching, learning, and technology assistants. So people that help us consult with instructors, help them with their technology needs. So if you know anybody who's kind of tech savvy, any grad student that is, please refer them to us. They can go right to uwm.edu/CETL, and then they're just going to look for this slide right here. It's going to filter right through, and they can click on that slide and they'll go right to the application processing and get started right there. So just in case you know anybody who would be looking for some job and be looking for a great place to work, with me. Other things. One other one, the weekly pitch for Kathy Pinkowski. She's sitting right up front, just to let you know if you're online or if you're right here, Kathy is able to answer any questions or help with any technical issues that you might have. Also, if you were in the College of Letters and Sciences, please contact Kathy, because she'd be happy to help you out and give you some terrific support, both with your class design or with your technology. So please reach out to Kathy for that. You can talk to her after the show or pick up her card at the front desk there. So today, we're going to be talking about mastering, Kristen, the Canvas gradebook. So Kristen Ciarto earned her PhD at the University of Minnesota. So Gopher fan, I take it then.
Right, they were the Gophers.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to many games. I'm not sure why.
Oh, okay. Not sure what. I think we could tell you. She has an active teaching schedule and is currently exploring the relationship and research among social movements, collective identity, the state, and spaces of the city. And with all that going on, Kristen has still graciously agreed to come talk to us today about her experience with the Canvas gradebook. So, Kristen, thank you so much for being here, and welcome.
Well, thanks for the generous introduction, Lane. And we're joking about mastering because Lane came up with that, and I was saying, I really don't feel like I've mastered the Canvas gradebook. In fact, what I'm going to tell you is a story of how last fall, at about this time, I realized I started using Canvas last fall. I used it in one class only at first, a 100 level, so introductory world regional geography class that tends to enroll in the fall, about 100 students. And I realized about this time, I have built my gradebook really wrong. And so I'm going to tell you the mistakes I made so that you don't have to do them. And hopefully you haven't. So here's your gradebook, right? And I've taken off the students' names, FERPA and all that. And it's showing this is what the students see, right? So the students get on there and all they want to see is this is what we look at, right? We're seeing how they're doing, but they want to see what is my grade. But this, you don't build it there, right? You're building it in the assignments page, right? And so there were various problems that I'd had because the way that I was conceiving of the assignments page was, when they're working on this paper, I'm going to group all the paper assignments in this group. And when they're working on this other thing, I'm going to group those together. And this turned out to be a mistake. So for example, and this is this kind of class, it's a lecture and discussion class. So I lecture at them twice a week, and then we attempt to do some active learning things in the lecture, but sometimes they resist. There's usually about a third freshmen, a third to a quarter sophomores, and then a bunch of juniors and seniors. And so there are many quizzes. They're small practice quizzes. Traditionally we've done 2 exams, a midterm and a final, and 2 short papers. But we tell them that they can drop the lowest of those because some students are better at exams, some students are better at papers. And we keep changing this around. And by we, I mean myself and my TAs, my TAs have been great, and so we try to work as a team. So the way that the class was configured in the syllabus was there were 2 exams and 2 papers. The lowest of the 2 exams and papers is dropped, so only 3 count. So if they blow the midterm exam because they're terrible at multiple choice, fine. Then we help them study for the final. And this is really important for the freshmen too. Or if they blow the first paper or they don't even turn it in, again, they could get out of it. For the students who are really on track, they can either do the final paper, and it's not even a final paper, it's like a 3-page paper, or they can do the final exam, and it's dropped. One or the other, they can choose depending on how the grade is, right? So those students are up on it. Also, they need to do a draft of each paper, but again, if they do a terrible job on one draft, we're gonna drop it. And again, for the solid performing students, if they say the second time around, oh, I don't wanna do the draft, I'm just gonna turn in the paper, they don't have to do it. So I grouped the draft and the paper and the draft and the paper in Canvas. But the problem is, if I'm gonna drop one of these 3 things, or one of these 4 things, or one of those 2 things, this does not work at all, right? So if this is in a group, and that is in a group, you can only, the way that you drop things, you can't say, oh, I'm gonna drop one of the things that is worth a little bit fewer points. So that was really a problem, and so we fixed that in the grade book, and we grouped the 2 drafts together, which makes sense. Those are a similar kind of assignment. And one of them and the condition for that group is the lowest is dropped. Similarly, the papers and the exams are grouped together, again with the condition, the lowest one gets dropped. Okay, the students don't see any of this machination. The students see this in the syllabus though, but this is all behind the scenes. So this worked better. There's the 4%, so that is set to 4% of their grade, lowest dropped. And this one is set to 40, that group then is set to 45% of the grade with the lowest dropped. Okay, this worked just fine. This made sense. Okay, the other mistake. Similarly, it was making groups of assignments and wanting to weight them, but then grouping things that didn't make sense. So we had 2 map quizzes together in a group, but one of them had 15 questions and therefore was worth 15 points. The other one had 20 questions and therefore was worth 20 points. Now, is that a good idea? Should the map quizzes be weighted the same? One covers 3 regions, the other 4, maybe the weighting is fine. But we created this dilemma for ourselves and we just weren't even sure how we wanted to weight it. Then we also grouped a topical quiz that was extra credit with topical quizzes that weren't extra credit. Because I was thinking, hey, remember in D2L, you can go in and click on it and put a star by it and boom, it's extra credit. Yeah, no, you can't do that here. It had to go in a group by itself, any extra credit things. Furthermore, we had the introductory quiz, which was supposed to be worth 1%, grouped with other quizzes that each was worth about 0.9%. That didn't work either. So we had to separate those out. So this was the solution, was we had to separate each of these into different groups. We actually put it became messy, but we ended up putting, so here's the bonus quiz. It was on elections in the United States and around the world. And so that had to be in its own category with being 1% of the total grade. So the total grade added up to 101%. The maps were also bonus quizzes, but again, the different values this semester, they're not bonus. They have to learn the maps, but we made a mistake then. So, we separated those because we wanted them to be the same weight, but they had different numbers of questions. And then the introductory quiz, we also separated it out. And so we've continued, to do with some of these, with bonus quizzes, they're just separate, the introductory quiz separate. And in a way, this is good, because with the topical quizzes, the topical quizzes are on a topic, not about the syllabus. And they work a little bit differently. So these were our big mistakes. these are some of the ways that we fix them. And so then this started a conversation among myself and my TAs. How do we communicate these things to students? What we want to communicate to students is what are the important assignments, what's going to be worth a lot, what you don't have to stress out about too much. For example, when they have 15 quizzes in this class, we're like, look, don't worry about it. There's actually 20 quizzes, but you dropped the 5 lowest, so just take it. Just take it again. We give them 5 attempts, don't worry about it. And so they see that in the grade that it adds up to not very much. So the final weighting, which has been in the syllabus but also shows up on the grade book, is that is what's communicating the importance to students. So that's really important. Is to look at is to use the groups and put assignments in groups instead of just separately. So just for example, in a different class that I'm currently putting in Canvas, I did something different because one of the big things throughout the semester is an annotated bibliography project. And they need to work on it a lot, and they need to understand that they've already turned in an assignment for that. So for that, I group it. For me to see it together, I group it, and for them in their there's a module on it, an entire module on it, so they kind of see it all together, and it's worth a large proportion of the grade. In fact, the whole thing adds up to 35% of the total, which is more than either exam in that class. And again, they see this in the syllabus, and then on the grade book, they just see the pieces, but this worked out because none of that gets dropped. That can all be together, none of it's dropped, and it's weighted within. I'll talk about that in a second, I don't want to get ahead of myself. On the other hand, if you have some similar assignments and you're going to drop the lowest, they need to go in a group. Or you could drop the lowest 2 or the lowest whatever. On the other hand, when you get within a group, you cannot, unlike D2L, and this was one of the big challenges that we had in switching over, is within D2L you could say, oh, this is worth 50%, and within that you could break the percentages down. You can't do that here, you have to do it with points. It has to be with points. So if I have this paper draft, and a paper draft and a revised paper, and the whole thing, it's worth 19% of total because that intro quiz is worth 1%. So with this, what I wanted is for this to be worth 4% in the course, and this to be worth, what, 15% in the course? That's right. And to do that, I kind of had to break it down and think about, instead of percentages, I had to convert it into points. And then when I built the rubric, which is, again, another way you're trying to communicate to students what they've done well or not. With the rubric, we had a rubric that was a 100-point rubric. We needed to change it so it was a 75-point rubric, because otherwise the students just get very confused. So there was a lot of back and forth alignment between, here's the assignment, here's the syllabus, here's what we have in here, and then also here's the rubric, which is now in here too. So again, one of the ways that we did that was with quizzes, for example. No, not quizzes, we made them all the same. When there was a complex assignment with multiple parts or a group of assignments, like this one, we decided, okay, we need to first identify the point value of the lowest weighted and what's logical in terms of grading, and then assign the point values to the other. Because if you start with the biggest thing, you say, oh, that's 100 points, then you get to something where, oh, maybe a small piece is worth 9 points, which doesn't really work well for students in the way that they think on grading. So this is why we went with 75 points here, 20 points here, because we could develop a rubric that was a 20-point rubric. We could have done 10, but then this would have worked out to be really uneven. So that's one way to do it, is look at the whole group. If there's a small part, weight it, decide the weight first, and convert that to points. Or identify the weight of the combined assignments and break it down by points. And that is also what we did with discussion section participation. It's overall, no, that's not what we did there. Sorry, that's actually similar to what we did here too. Is how many points is it worth, and break it down. All right, I think that is my last slide.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So this is in the assignments view.
This is an assignments view.
So this, like when the students are looking at the course overall, you might have, okay, this week we're working on this,
Yes.
and this is a totally separate.
They never see this.
Okay.
They never see this. So what is grouped on, say, the home page is, I don't do this in my summer online class, but in my semester class, it's week by week, because it seems like that helps them progress through it. So this week, this is due, but then I often, if it's an assignment that is spread out over time that I want them to think about as a whole assignment that develops, because we have a lot of scaffolded assignments where you do a draft, a peer review, etc.
Okay.
Then we have a part of it in the homepage view. There's going to be something in a module. But there's also saying, oh, week 7, final draft due. But also we might have up at the top, research paper and the different parts. And we're still trying to figure out, and maybe Lane or Kathy or someone else, one of y'all has an idea of, I still haven't figured out the best design strategy for that. Like, do we put that in do we make a module about that, or do we make a page? And keep the page near the top of the home, and then within the page have links to other things, so they can go, oh yeah, here's the explanation of the assignment. Here's the full-length assignment and a PDF, so that it's cleaner and again, more student-facing. Because again, they never see any of this
And then
hashing around.
with each one of those modules, which to me has the drop-down arrow.
Right.
That is actually grouped then in the grade book as a.
Nope.
Okay.
No, the modules do not translate to the grade book in that same way. What they see in the grade book is they see this kind of turned on its side. So let's say you have a group of quizzes. You've got 5 quizzes, the lowest one's dropped. Those 5 quizzes will be quiz 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the grade book.
Okay.
So they're going to see a group by assignments, which doesn't necessarily help them, but this going back and forth between the grade book and the homepage, for example, the homepage is going to tell them the points of each assignment. And then when they do the thing where they want to see, okay, what is my grade so far? It communicates that. Yeah, sorry, have I just muddied the water so much?
No, you didn't know. It was really interesting. Like you're saying that, because in reality, if you have points that are in different groups, you can have one group that's worth 20%, and that 20% is comprised of 10 points. And another group of 20% that's comprised of 1,000 points.
Yeah.
And they're both worth 20%. But students, they're seeing the point value on the home page, so they see, this is worth 500 points, that's worth 5 points. It doesn't matter that calculations are going to be exactly the same.
And that's why the building up from the low, and I've tried to do that throughout the course and I still haven't succeeded completely, but that's why saying, let's look at the whole course and look at what is a small assignment and say, oh, let's set the point value as this, and then everything else gets much bigger. So as much as I'd like the paper to be, 50 points, and the exams to be a certain number of points, I may have to kind of multiply them.
Right.
I don't want to say inflate them because it's not grade inflation, but make the points bigger so that they get, I'm earning this many points.
So the points, you need to be careful of how you relate the points, even if they're in separate categories, because students will perceive that because they won't get that information the same way you will. That's really,
and so I think,
really
and so I think that I've just realized that with my weighting of my exams are not weighted heavily enough in the points. They're weighted properly in the grade book if the students look at percentage, but if they look at points, they're like, well, there's 90 points in the exam, but I just took a quiz worth 12, but that quiz is not worth 12% of their grade at all. That quiz is worth 0.9, unless it's a really bad quiz and it gets dropped.
Yeah.
So,
That's really
great.
big.
Yeah.
Comment. The quiz section in under the home page, you see, usually allows us to create online quizzes, but if our class has a in-paper quiz, then in such scenario, we do have to create groups for quizzes.
Yes, you can still create a group for that. You're going to create that instead of that being a quiz. The way that Canvas recognizes a quiz is as an online quiz. That will be an assignment that you'll then manually enter the value. Yeah, and we have multiple things like that too, where they do like a
You just call it quiz. Is that right? So
Right.
it's like
You can name it quiz, but Canvas is going to Canvas wants you to click. It's not showing up here, but it wants you to click the assignment button, not the quiz button. Is the only difference. Yeah, but it can all go in there, and the students want to see it, as soon as they took it. But we tell them you have to. We're returning your grades within a week is good enough. Yeah. Any other thoughts or comments or questions or anything?
Do you have
Tricks that you've figured out that?
Christy, were you still going? I didn't know.
You know what? You know what? This is the same. This is just sort of a wrap up.
Okay, yeah.
Grouping the assignments. You just need to make choices. There's no one right way to do it. One option is to group assignments by the final weighting, and again, that will stack them in your grade book together, like draft, final paper. Now those two are next to each other. That says something to the students. On the other hand, I like for there to be differences between formative assessments and summative assessments. So for example, and that's not what went on here exactly, but these are formative assessments. If they don't do one of them, it's fine. Same thing with my online quizzes. Those are very much formative assessments, and a lot of them get dropped. Therefore, for me, many times I'm going to put formative assessments in a group so that they can drop the lowest, because it's okay if they didn't do great. And then the way that I'm teaching this class this semester is the summative assessments, none of them gets dropped, unlike this. But that was how we used to do it again, to eliminate crises when students didn't miss the first exam or whatever, but it didn't help with various things, so we're rethinking that. Or grouping the assignments by final weighting and their relationship, and then you've got to pay attention to the point values. And so again, there's so many ways to do this, but thinking through what does your syllabus look like? What is it that, do you want the students to see things grouped together in a certain way, or does that not matter in the grade book because you're going to communicate it through point values? And there I'm going to stop them so that you can get on with things. Yeah.
Quick question, since we talk about grade book, approaching mid-semester, there's a need to looking at current total grade, which D2L we can actually calculate.
Right.
Can we do the similar thing at campus?
Yes, and that is Lane's specialization.
Yes.
So I'm going to hand over to Lane now.
Okay, no, I had questions for you too. I'm not letting you off.
I have no answers. I told you I hadn't really mastered it.
But you guys, you have some good strategies though. The other question is, when you're building out your grade scheme, because it's kind of like, I mean, it's complicated to set up any grade scheme. Where do you start? Do you start like an Excel spreadsheet? Do you start on Canvas to kind of see how it's working together? Because then you can see how that point system and the weighting system works. Where do you start building your grade book, or where do you build out your grade book?
You know, that's a really good question, and I don't know that I can answer it because I do feel like it's this juggling act of taking my syllabus from the previous semester and looking at the part of the syllabus that says where I list the percentages for the students.
Yeah.
And sometimes, putting that in Excel and going back and forth between percentages and points.
So it's kind of like
With one of my classes, I definitely did it in Excel before I put anything
Sure.
in Canvas. But that semester, a year ago, I was just putting everything in Canvas like a maniac because we had said we were going to do the class in Canvas. But I feel like I'm not sure. I think I generally start with the syllabus itself and what kinds of assignments I think I want to give them and percentages overall to think about what do I want to weigh. And this brings me to another thing that may be relevant to some of you, but this particular class I've talked about, this World Regional Geography, that often enrolls 100 students. Connie Schrader got in touch with me because we had a really high DFW rate.
Sure.
We had over 20% of students with Ds, Fs, or withdrawals. And so one of the things we decided about that was to weight lecture attendance and participation more. And that may seem crazy because it's a lecture, but we saw a pattern of students. We don't just lecture and lecture, like students do group work, they do other things sometimes. Some days I just lecture, it depends. But Connie suggested we weight that. So that was one big change. I guess we made that change this fall of lecture, attendance plus participation, which means no card quizzes, group work. It's now 10% instead of 5%.
Sure.
So I started the syllabus and
Sure.
sort of what are the assignments and what's the value of them to students. And that's a formative assessment, very much, right? Like you were there, they write terrible things on their note cards and then we figure out that we need to review that.
So it's like you start with what the ideal is, your syllabus, and then you kind of fit that, you map that geography, you map that on to what Canvas can do.
Topological mapping,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then, I guess the key thing I feel like I've learned with Canvas is to think in terms of points because the students are seeing points. And I feel like I haven't succeeded in that fully yet. So maybe by next year, if I come back again, I'll get the points thing down properly so that the students are really getting it. Yeah.
What was you had the extra credit in its own thing? So what else is a part of the strategy for extra credit? Are the students when they do it? Do all the students they don't all have to take it?
Extra credit is optional.
Right.
In fact, I often don't do this class. I have very mixed feelings about extra credit. Mostly, I think it is not great for our students because we have so many students who are working one job, 2 jobs, taking care of a family member who's ill, all kinds of things, so that really, if they could just do the work in the course, that would be best. But on the other hand, because this class is such an introductory level class, and there's some students, often global studies, international studies, or geography majors, that they want to learn more about something, we have so the extra credit that semester was it was just an online quiz that had a study guide that had links to news articles about elections in other countries. And so actually at first there were links to information about the election here and student voting, and then links to stuff on other. So it was just an online quiz. It was completely optional, and that's why it was in its own group. It didn't affect anyone. You got a couple points added to your total or not. Now we have a different extra credit activity this semester, which is like go do something related to another place in the world on campus, go to a talk, go to study abroad and ask them questions, to just kind of get them to think outside of the United States, basically. But it doesn't matter, in Canvas just puts it on top as one. That's why you have to add up your percentages and make sure it's adding up to 101% with that additional 1%.
So it's just 100%, and then you add another category that's 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So then the calculations are never going to go. Like even if they get that all wrong, they can still get 100% in the
Yeah.
course. Okay, that's
Yeah. Yeah, and it was Amy who helped me out with that.
Cool.
I had to come to Siegel for help with that. We were like, what do we do? Yeah.
Yeah, related to that 101%. So for those students who do not do the optional, will the final grade be calculated based on 101?
No. It's still great. It's still like out of 100%.
Still at 100%. So I thought the strategy is put a 0% on the.
That is.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
Yeah,
You could totally do that. You could make.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works as well.
It's
Okay.
difficult sometimes with quizzes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy.
Okay.
But if with quizzes, each quiz question has a point.
Right.
So once you start making it worth points,
Mm-hmm.
then if they miss those points or they don't do it,
Yeah.
it counts against them.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's in a category that's
Mhm.
above 100%,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter because they can still earn 100% of the grade. They
Yeah.
just don't get that extra 1%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can configure it either way.
There's two ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sarah.
I have so many questions, and I'm so sorry to say. Have you seen, pedagogically, have you seen any difference if you use, say, 1,000 points for the class versus 100 points for the class? Do students respond?
I don't know yet. Have you seen stuff? Because I haven't read anything about that yet, but I kind of feel like that's where I'm headed with this. And I've seen other people have very high point values for things. And my first reaction was just like, oh my gosh, that's really alien to me. I don't get it.
Right.
But I'm actually thinking that it makes sense now. And I feel like Canvas is kind of pushing us toward that. I mean, I want to read research on it to see if someone's looked at this.
I don't know if it's like a psychological thing where if students see something's worth 100 points instead of 10 points, or 10 points instead of 1 point, if that motivates them differently, even though it could be just, it's still the same percentage.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question.
In terms of game theory, in terms of like arcade, video game, that stuff, they pump up, they inflate, and it's totally inflating the number of zeros behind the pinball machine because it gives you a greater sense of accomplishment when you hit 1,000 points versus 1 point.
Ooh, that's
What did
great.
you do? I hit it
Point
once.
inflation without grade inflation.
Exactly, and it is a psychological thing. We see 1,000 points, like, whoa, I hit this flipper, I got 1,000 points. I'm doing good. I got to keep going at it. So there is that pushes you along, and I've also seen some evidence that it doesn't hit as bad either, because if you only have 100 points, you're much more miserly about those points. Whereas if you have a higher number of points, if you lose a couple points, it doesn't mean as much to you because that point value is higher. So it's just kind of, some psychology would say, at least this is for video games, would say that, hey, this helps because it's a motivator, it turns it more into a game. But maybe that's kind of, you're thinking, I don't know, I don't like how that works.
Well, on the flip side, would instructors be more apt to give more points? Say something's worth 1,000 points, will we be more likely to give them more points, like 958 instead of a 90, right?
Mhm.
You know.
I don't, see, that's where it breaks down.
Rubrics.
Yeah.
And it is
Having the
calculated
points
on
in the rubric so that I don't have to deal with
That'd
those
be a
decisions.
really fascinating study. I don't
Yeah.
have time for it, but that'd be a good one.
Probably already been done, I should probably
Yeah.
just go look that one up. But that was, because I was gonna ask that question, it's a good question.
Okay.
One of my idea with this is in my rubric, I give a certain number of points,
Mhm.
and then I divide what they do by the number of points and into a percentage and say, that's your grade.
Sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because then I don't have to worry about the number of points, and people get, 90% is a low A.
Right, because they did.
I'm like, if you don't get that, I'm like, have you gone to school? Whatever,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
And they can get as many points as they want, but it still boils down to percentage, because I've gotta get a grade at the end of the semester, and then I weight the grades in the grade book.
Two quick technical questions. One, on gradebook, can't you change it so students see percentage instead of points?
Yes.
Okay, maybe you covered that before. And
No.
if you group assignments, so say you have 5 quizzes and you're gonna drop the lowest of the quizzes, can you still do it so that they have multiple attempts at quizzes and you only take the highest attempt?
Oh yeah, those are totally, the multiple attempts thing is when you create the quiz, whereas the drop the lowest things is on this assignments page. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and then this is definitely the way to go, is, yeah. Those options.
I'm gonna wrap up the questions right now.
Yeah.
And then, so thank you so much, Kristen, I really appreciate that, so.
Thanks everyone for coming.
And just so that we can do our activity, so we can maybe kind of flesh out some of the questions that you had about how this worked. I'm on end show, thank you. All right. There we go, okay. So, So what I want, if you haven't already, make sure that, and this URL is on your handout as well. But just for those who are online joining us, if you haven't signed up for the Canvas course, please do so. And then I would like it, it would be great, if you could complete, there's 2 activities for you today. I want you to complete a pop quiz, right? And a short assignment. So there's 2 things you need to be doing, here and here. What does this say? This, everyone, this is already due, so you're already late, I think, folks.
And your students slept so long.
I know exactly, should not have slept in today. I see it was due yesterday, and that's on purpose. So please take the quiz, even though it's late, I meant for that. And then do the in-lab activity. It will take 5 minutes. It should be very quick. Nothing's difficult, and it's more of I just want to get some data into the gradebook from you. And then that way you can see what it looks like on the student side, and then we can also see what it looks like on the instructor side. So I'll give you about, I'll say 3 or 4 minutes to do that. I'll get some coffee.
Let me guess, a historian thought of this.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know us. And if you get the bonus question, I'll be very impressed.
Oh, I thought there was gonna be a monetary award.
Monetary award.
You get paid quite the multiple of the actual. Alright.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Oh, so right there, if you click on that, sorry, I just did it by accident. Yep, there you go. I love question 7, Lane, that is fantastic.
What is question 7?
The trade items question.
Yes, the trade items question, when the second option is none of the above.
Does that work for your computer? That one work for your computer?
I'm gonna need a bagel after failing this quiz.
And I love question 9, where all of the above has an answer for. I don't know if that's a
spin the question.
That's called turn time to switch to multiple answers question time.
That's because I pulled it directly from D12. Like, these are just questions I pulled
Yeah.
directly from a course I taught in D12
And that's
4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's a question just not to make it now, like is there a way to anchor the none of the above, all of the above,
There
this
is
last
not.
one, and then spin the rest above it, and that's.
No.
It's best to convert it to a multiple answers question.
And that's where you're.
And then you can do check all that are
Yeah.
correct and they have to get them all.
That's a good, I like that. Or you can say all other options, just make it general, like a
Mhm.
non-specific. Yeah,
I
But-
feel like with that one particular class of mine, it's best if I'm very clear, check all that are.
I like that even, I like that better.
This is what ate my life until last year.
Kristen and Renato? It's Renato.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, did you sign into this course before today, or did you do it today?
I just did it today.
And you signed in
Just
today?
today, yeah.
That's interesting. And Hillary, where's Hillary? Maybe she's online.
Maybe she's online.
All right. I'm curious as if Hillary was in, had been in here before, because I'm seeing some of these are showing up as late and some of these
Oh, that's interesting.
are not showing up. And I'm kind of wondering if the common denominator is that you've already signed up for the course. And if you've already signed up for the course, it'll count as late. But if you didn't sign up for the course,
Awesome.
Beforehand.
It's
it's not late.
That's an unprecedented fairness from Canada.
Yes, it's very interesting.
Yes.
How'd you do?
I got it back.
Hey,
I'm glad I just read Charles Mann's 1491 and 1493, because that gave me pretty much all the answers, or many of the answers.
Did it? 1491 gave you those answers?
1493 more so.
Oh,
I'm actually.
that's a pretty hotly debated book.
Oh, I understand. I mean, their scholarship is a little bit loose, but
A little bit.
I think that certain things are directionally accurate.
Sure. All right. Well, that's a good topic for afterwards. All right. Man, I'm trying to remember those theses. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're getting the numbers rolling in. And so we are seeing that this quiz. Now, if you have turned in the quiz, we're still waiting for and so we'll give you one more minute. So just power through it if you haven't done it yet. You can just blindly click on buttons. Pretend you didn't study for the quiz. But we got it. Good, all right. Let's see. And everyone's done both assignments, Bill? You're kind of sitting with your hands back.
Oh,
You haven't done the second
Oh,
assignment.
other assignment.
Oh yeah, there's two assignments. There's a quiz and an assignment. And it's just really like,
Oh.
what's your favorite color?
Right.
And what's the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
I couldn't get this out.
So where's the, I'm not understanding where to, I don't see the text entry.
Ah,
box on my
yes.
screen.
So you have to click, if you scroll to the top, it'll be submit assignment.
Oh, and then it gives you the box.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you submitted.
See, no, this is really helpful, isn't it? Because you've seen it, I'll show you what it looks like.
It's got in lab assignment, I click,
Student
submit assignment, how do I enter anything?
And then you, at the very top, there's a submit assignment.
Okay,
And this is what your students see,
okay.
right? So they have to click on submit assignment.
I need some help. Click on that sign.
Oh. There you go. And then at the bottom, there'll be a text entry.
What do you mean? African or European swallow? I don't know that.
There you go. I love that movie. Oh man, I love that movie. It's so good. And then you gotta couple that with like the whole conversation on top of the castle wall of like of the possibility. But African swallows are non-migratory. Oh yes. See, that's what history nerds watch over and over again. I actually went to Scotland. I visited Castle Doyne where they filmed all of that, and I ran around with like little coconut shells and recreated scene after scene. That was so much fun. There's a couple people looking at me weird, but come on, it's Castle
Just a
Rock.
couple.
Yeah.
I think that is a daily thing.
And actually, I was watching some Game of Thrones, and they filmed parts of it in the exact same castle. It's like, no, that's from Monty Python. That's from Monty Python. Thank you. Yes.
Scene stealers.
Yes. All right. Let's see. So that's where we're at. Submit. Okay.
That's interesting. Okay.
And then I'm going to go back to grades, and then we can see what this looks like. Okay. Good. Good. All right. So first things first. If you're, if you can finish up, that's great. But let's look at what we have here. So first of all, you should have all received your grades for in-class quiz. You should be able to see those grades right away, but nothing for in-class, in-lab assignment. Even if I had graded those, you wouldn't see any. And that's because of how some of the gradebook functionality that has changed as of late. So first of all, you're going to notice, if you go to the right-hand side, the gear icon, there is now a grade posting policy option. All right. By default, it's set to automatically post grades. So that means all the grades in your grade book will automatically post to students. So all the assignments. You also could select manually post grades, and that would be good if you're doing a lot of you're going to hand, write out the responses, give them feedback. So that's manually post grades, means the students will not get their feedback back. You have to manually click on posting the grade. So you have an option to automatically post grade and to manually post grade at the global level. Again, this is kind of complicated, and sometimes it took me a couple times to get through this. I have it all, it's all written down here. So you have some duplicate copies there, you can rewatch this later. So there's a global setting for how to post grades. Okay, by default, I would just leave it as automatically. That's the default, and that sets it for the entire gradebook. Then for each assignment, you can set the posting policy as well. All right, so in-lab quiz is set to just the default, but the in-lab assignment is set, if I click on the little, I don't know, it's called an ellipsis. I like kebab better. Kebab. And I click all the way down to grade posting policy, I can go here and I can see, this was set to manually. Okay, so there's an individual for each assignment, and then there's a global setting as well. So global setting and individual assignment setting. So let's look a little bit more closely at this quiz. I see, okay, everyone's grade is right here. Hey, you know what? I think it was a little harsh. I noticed the grades are kind of low. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click on the kebab, and I can choose to hide the grades. And now I can choose, I have an option, I can say which section. So if I have multiple sections, I can choose to hide the grades for single sections or for everybody. So if you have a bunch of sections in your course, you can do this by section, which is a really cool tool that's kind of new. You're all in one section, so it doesn't really apply to this situation. But if you have multiple sections in yours, like if you have 100 students, you can do that for individuals, or your TAs can do that. So I'm going to click hide, and I'll wait, and it's going to hide. And then you should notice on yours, if you click refresh after this is done doing its thing. It looks kind of cool though, it's kind of hypnotic. There it goes. All right, so now I see, yes, I have a little line through there. This means when it's filled in like that, it means that grades have posted, but now they're hidden, right? There's grades that are hidden, right? All right, this means that there's nothing really hidden there. So I can go in and I can give people, I can up some grades a little bit. Okay, see, they got the grades, 9 out of 10. I can maybe change, you know what? I need to change theirs up to a 3. I'm feeling generous today. Merry Christmas, all right. So I can change those grades around. And then I can go up here and I can say, you know what? I want to post those grades. So I'm going to click post. And I can see, I want to post to everyone. I can see which grades are hidden. These are the grades that are hidden. And I'm going to say, these grades aren't. I made a change, and it automatically released that because it's set to automatically post the grades.
Globally.
Well, and for this assignment as well.
Yeah.
Even though I've hidden the other ones, as soon as I make a change, it automatically goes out. So I have it hidden, but it's still going out. So I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna assign, you know what, everyone's grade is gonna be released, or I can release the grades for just those who have been graded. Or I can release the specific sections, but everyone's in that one section. So I'm gonna select post. And now, if I wait, I'll see these dots go away, and that means that those grades have been released. So just to be thinking about how this functionality is working. I was a little surprised by this because of how the description works inside of the Canvas community, but this is being released automatically as soon as I put a grade in there, even though I have the grade quote unquote hidden. I now see that there's no dots, there's no I with the line through it, and so that grade should have been released to everyone again. Any questions?
What view are you looking at?
Okay, this is the instructor view, so I'm in the same course as you, but I'm an instructor.
Okay.
You're the student in the same course.
Yeah,
And I'm just, what I'm doing is I'm clicking on the ellipsis or in the kebab next to this assignment and making those changes there. Yes?
The quick question is, you increase my grades, I won't complain.
Thank you. That's it. You always move it up. You always move it up.
But on the other hand, if the grades has been decreased,
Yeah.
and the student will actually have a screenshot of previous grades, right? So
They,
how are you going to-
yes, it's possible that they would have a screenshot. They certainly would know it in their head.
Right, so how are you going to handle that?
So then you would have to talk to them why you moved it down. Mostly, I would suggest for quizzes that are like, this is one that was auto-graded. I already knew the right answers, right? It's very rare that I move a student's grade down unless they've been cheating. It's usually like I have a problem on a question, so I move the grade up. So if it's a grade that I think it's auto-graded, it's the assignment, it's the quiz, it's gonna be automatically graded. The quiz answers are pretty tight. I'm just gonna have it set to auto, and that way students get it right away. Now we can look at manually, and that's where the grades might go up or down, and where you maybe, if it's possible, you don't want to reveal to a student that they had a higher grade originally and that you moved it down later on. So that's where I would really focus on the manual. Right here, we just did an automatic grade. Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of assignments, say that let's say the lab, I have to read through it and grade it. I'm starting to enter those. Sometimes it might be nice just to be able to hold those grades till they're all entered, you know, make sure I didn't make any errors, and then hit send.
That's,
Would I use the manual for that?
you'd use the manual. I would suggest using automatic as your global setting, and then going to the assignments that you want to have some adjustment on and make those manual, like I did here. So right here, I had already done,
Not necessarily talking about adjustments, but you know, if they're not automatic like this, but I have to enter them all manually or something, I might want to hold them until I get all entered, recheck them.
and that's where you make it manual. But you do want to make it manual before the assignment is turned in, especially if it's an automatic graded, because it will automatically release everything. Even if you go back and say it's going to be manual, all the grades that have already been posted have been posted. It's not hidden. So,
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
That should help.
When you make changes, is there a place that you can see the history
of a grade?
of the grade?
Oh yeah, totally. Anytime you make a change in the grade book, it's shown right here. Every student's grade, every change to that grade is recorded right here, and you can go and check if you want to make change, if you've made changes. That's really handy if some mistakes been made. Mistakes were made. I am going to next. I'm going to go show you. Let's show you what a manual. Did you have a question, Sarah?
Yeah, so on the grade for the quiz, somebody got a 9, we all hate that person, and then the mean is at 3.5, which shows me the distribution. So
Yeah.
students can go in and they can see what everybody got.
Yeah.
Which isn't a problem if you have an assignment and you put all the assignments in and that shows up. But if you have an assignment over the course of the semester, so say people are presenting across the semester,
Right.
if you put one student's grade in, then the whole class will be able to see that person's grade if they go in there. So is there a way to remove that?
That's in analytics, and not that I'm aware of. Kathy, do you know anything like that? Like,
For a specific quiz, I'm not sure. You could turn it off for the entire class under settings, and I wonder if that also controls it. We'd have to look.
full analytics, all right, and settings. Well, we'll check on that, and then we'll send an email out today about that one. Good question.
Yeah, that would
Thank
just
you.
be really helpful because there's especially at the beginning of the semester, I don't want all the other students to know what.
Oh, yeah, no, it makes sense. Thank you. So the next, question, next assignment was that short essay that was set to manually grade. So I'm gonna give some grades out. I'm just gonna grade the first half of first half of everyone. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we'll just go and do, okay. So 5, 5.
A lot of fans of blue.
That is statistically the most one of the most popular colors. Absolutely. Yes.
Blue color named Michael, I mean, come on.
Okay. All right. So I'm going back to grades. I'm giving grades for about 5 of you. All right. So here we go. I've given the grades. All right. And I can say, okay. So here's the grades. I've given grades for about half of you. All right. You don't see those. Let's say I'm happy with those. I'm done grading for the night. I'm happy with that. I can go in here. And I can go and I can set and post grades, and I can choose. Do I want to give everyone their grade? Even if they haven't been graded, they'll see that they haven't been graded. Or do I just want to give the people to those who have been graded? So I'm going to say graded, just for those, and then I'm going to go post it.
The spinning wheel.
Spinning wheel is starting back up again.
Wheel.
There we go. Come on. Big money. There we go. So there we go. So I've given those grades, and now the people at the top half of the alphabet, they've got it. And then let's give Sarah and Deontay, and there we go.
You know they deserve 5.
I do. This is this is how I used to grade as a TA. I just throw them down the steps, and the ones that were the heaviest had the most pages. They got an A all the way down, and then they worked their way back up. All right.
The basis way of the paper.
That doesn't work when they're submitting on Canvas.
Oh, that was back in the olden days. All right. Okay, so I see again that this little symbol has showed up saying to me that, hey, some of these people haven't had their grades in yet. Sarah, do you see your grade?
No.
Good. But it's not showing me this here, which is super annoying. They've been trying to say.
You have to refresh the page.
I just refreshed too. I'll try it again.
I did refresh.
Okay.
But she should see hers. She shouldn't be seeing her grade. But I should be seeing
Okay.
a little dot down here next to her name. I should see, this should be saying that has been hidden. It will show this. Now, they need to get that a little bit more consistent. I can go and choose post, and now I'll see which ones haven't. I don't know why they don't do that earlier. But I see, okay, I've posted the grades once, but this is still set to manual. This assignment is still set to manually post. So every time I post grades, they'll post, but then if I grade some more, they won't go out until I click it, right? And I'll know that there are grades being hidden because this will turn orange as soon as I have a grade that students can't see. It'll be gray. That just tells me when this I is gray, it's just telling me that this is going to be manually posted. But as soon as it turns orange, that means it's manually posted and there's grades that are hidden. All right? And now I see that these ones haven't been graded yet and have been visible, so I'll click grade. And I'll just click everyone, and this will release it to everyone. And now I'm done. And good job, everyone. Awesome job on your work today. And it's taking a little bit longer. Okay.
So that symbol will still show?
That's still showing because it's still manually graded.
Counterintuitive. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I thought that
Yes.
because I had it here with my students' grade-book, and I thought that I didn't post it, so I just changed the settings. So they saw it when I posted, right? I changed the policy to automatically.
Uh-huh.
So that the only difference is that tells us if it's automatic or manual.
Yes.
By color.
Yep, it's by color. That's
So this is something we are learning.
Yes, that was been asked about. Yeah.
So is there any utility if I mouse over that icon there?
No, it doesn't say anything.
Or this?
Yeah.
It just says no. It doesn't. It's still picking up in lab assignment. It's
Yeah,
not,
it doesn't show us the difference between red color or gray color.
No.
Would that be something to help us? At least we are learning this.
the Canvas community is kind of up in arms about some of these. updates because they made a lot of updates without fully explaining them.
Storm the Bastille.
Yeah, so I might be paranoid. Let me tell you this. When I'm learning this, I tend not to change anything. Just use default.
Yes.
Worry about down the road something may get changed if I use a particular settings.
Yes.
So is this the right approach, or should I feel confident to use different policy or settings and assuming that I will be notified?
I would say go with the default as much as you
Okay.
can,
Yeah,
because I feel like if you're feeling uncomfortable with it, don't do something that you aren't.
Okay.
Just, I mean, the other thing that you can do is you can set it, I am not impressed as the more I work with it and how this is working. Sarah, one more time, do you see that I changed your grade to a 1?
Let's see. I have to refresh it, but yeah, I can't believe you gave me a 1. What kind of teacher are you?
So you,
Must be your fault.
Yeah, you also got a 1.
so that's the other thing to know.
Right.
As soon as you click on release grades to everyone,
Right.
it goes to everyone and then it keeps updating.
Okay.
So before, if you just click, this is confusing as all get out.
Right.
It's not intuitive. If you click and you post grades, I can't click on this new because everything's been posted. I would have to go in and hide grades. In order to hide the grades and hide the changes from Sarah. But it's just, right now, it's still set to manual, but even though I'm making changes, if the student has already been given that grade, because I already set everyone, released the grades to everyone, it's gonna go to everyone and it's gonna update all the changes. So, Sarah, you saw that I gave you a 1. I didn't mean to give you a 1, I meant to give you a 5. I just
Or a
mistakenly
7.
did it, or a 7. Yes. So that's, just to be aware of how the grade posting policy is working. There are handouts and videos, and I have links to that right here. So I feel as if I want to give you an update of how this all is working. There is a longest handout right here. It's a lot of text. I hate doing that, but it's just something that I felt is important for you to understand because it is a significant change in how Gradebook is working. And there's lots of links as well on there. And there's also a nice little blurb on how the late policy works too. Did anyone have any questions before we go?
I do. So if they have under their account, their settings set so they receive their grade immediately, if the grade changes, do they receive another ping?
Yes, they can receive a ping every time you make a change to your gradebook. They're going to every time you give feedback or make a change to the gradebook, they're going to get a ping.
Okay.
Right away.
Does it pop up in their email, or do they have to go to Canvas to see the grade?
Depends on how they have it set in notifications. Remember, it's basically whatever you were, the comment, the grade comment is a grade or a grade feedback response, and then that'll go to their email based on how they have it set up in notifications.
If you put a comment in with the grade and then you delete it, but they get the notification, will it then link them back and say comment not available, or what happens?
It'll just be, they'll get the most current version of it. No. Thank you. Feel free to stick around and ask questions. I'd be happy to talk more. I just want to wrap this up, just be conscious of time. If you can, please do fill out the evaluation. I'd really appreciate that. It really helps us improve our offerings. Next week, we're going to have Dylan Bart come, so please come and bring a buddy. It's always better with more people, so really appreciate the conversations and dialogue today. And again, please come back next week, October 2nd. It's already October. Indeed, I already have the pumpkin spice spread out today. So Dylan Bart with online teaching strategies in Canvas. He leads the online and blended teaching program, so he's been doing this for quite a bit, so he'll have some really great ideas for us, so please come back then. Or if you aren't able to come back face-to-face, please come back live, like those of you on the World Wide Web. Thank you again, appreciate Kristen's participation today. Have a great week, everyone.